Hello, are you ready to dive into a world of captivating conversations and insightful perspectives with Leap Listens? I'm Sarah, and I'm joined by my co-host Roger.
Hello.
And together we'll be your guides through our third podcast series. Leap Listens is proudly presented by Leap Create, a dynamic people communications agency that partners with organisations to communicate their unique culture and values. Go and check us out at leapcreate.co.uk. So join us as we explore the latest trends, share success stories, and uncover the secrets of effective communications in the workplace in just 15 minutes, or maybe a little bit more. Today we're joined by diversity, equity and inclusion specialist Stacey Ramm. Welcome, Stacey.
Hi, thank you so much for having me.
You're very welcome. So Stacey, tell us about you and your work in diversity and inclusion.
Yeah, so I've worked in HR in the people space for probably, I would say, most of my career now. I've spent a long time working across sort of talent and recruitment, and then naturally progressed into diversity, equity and inclusion around 5 years ago now. So I've worked with some really great businesses in this space. And for me, I always wanted to do a job that allowed me to drive sort of positive change and make the world a better place. And I'm grateful that I get to use my own personal experiences that have been seen as disadvantages in the past to do a job that I'm really passionate about.
Great. So for organisations that are just starting out on this journey, what are some of the practical first steps that they can take to make progress and then build momentum?
Ooh, where to start with that one? I think it could be a mountain of things. I guess from my perspective, commitment to DE&I means an organisation understands that each one of their colleagues are different. Each colleague represents different or multiple diversity strands. And then businesses need to recognise that you need to truly value and respect each of your colleagues' differences and being open to listening, learning. Promoting openness, taking a zero tolerance approach to any form of discrimination, bullying, harassment is obviously a journey in itself. But I think for organisations, just being willing to accept and acknowledge that where you're starting from, being transparent about what that picture tells you, and then seeing where you go from there. But recognising that being committed to D&I isn't a one-time thing. It's not a tick box exercise, and it's not a tick box and then you're done and there's nothing else to do. It's not a one-time thing, and it definitely shouldn't be seen as a side project. It should be brought into everything that an organisation does and is doing and is planning to do. And it takes serious time and investment for an organisation, for sure.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more with the idea that this should be something that's woven into all things rather than treated as a separate thing. And it leads me on to wondering, what's the process that you go through to assess your current DE&I status, and what are some of the common pitfalls that people might typically fall into?
Yeah, I mean, I think similar to what you were just saying there, Roger, around the recruitment element of things and people being asked to be more diverse, I think that becomes a focus on recruitment shortlists and things like that. And I'm not saying that that's not the right thing, because I think in some organisations it depends on your industry, it depends where you're starting from, and sometimes it's important to look at representation from a diversity perspective. But I think what I would say is, we know that diversity, equity, inclusion matters to people who are looking for a job in the jobs market today. In fact, I was reading something the other week that suggests 70% of millennials would not accept a job with a company whose values did not align to their own. And that's things like diversity and inclusion, sustainability. So, you know, if you're applying for a job and that company isn't representative of the values that you possess, then you're not aligned. And that would be a blocker for particularly for a lot of millennials in terms of joining organisations, but equally, you know, probably for a lot of younger generations too. I mean, my sister is 6 years younger than me, and her values and what she wants from a business is very different to what I would look for. So I think that that's constantly changing and evolving.
And just quickly on that, where's your sister looking for her evidence? So if she wants an organisation that aligns with her values, where does she go in the search to find out the truth?
Yeah, I mean, there's so many tools out there now as well, isn't there? And I think a lot of it comes through word of mouth and what you see kind of, you know, online about that organisation and what active work they're doing in this space. I think I would say that careers websites of an organisation are a good starting point for organisations that are very sort of forthcoming with this information, because that can often be displayed on there in a really great way. However, what I would say is, for some organisations that don't share what they're doing when it comes to diversity and inclusion, or don't share what value they're placing on diversity and inclusion, they might not have anything on their careers website. So then often, I mean, for my sister in particular, like she would look on Glassdoor, for example, or she would speak to friends and see, you know, how do they feel about this company and have they heard good things? And it tends to be more of a conversation element. I mean, I say this, and as I say, my sister is 6.5 years younger than I am. She's like mid-20s, and her values are very different to kind of what I would look for in my organisation.
You're all about the money, aren't you?
Yeah, definitely not, unfortunately. Yeah, I think I think as well, like, I would say that it's interesting because when I have conversations with friends, some of my friends are older than me, some of my friends are younger than me, I think what candidates want has changed quite significantly. And I know that's probably a whole host of different conversation. We could talk about that for hours, right? But I think that the kind of salary and benefits package is no longer like top priority.
No. It's like third or something now.
Yeah, it's top three. I was on a webinar not long ago and they were saying that the first one was like flexibility, second was career development and progression in sort of career pathways, and the third one was salary and benefits. And if you think about 10 years ago, no one would have ever even thought about the other two. It would have always been salary and benefits.
Yeah, I've seen similar lists with support around wellness and mental health being right up there too.
Culture and values. Yeah.
I think as well, like what I touched on at the beginning, for organisations that are just starting out in looking at their D&I journey, it can feel sometimes like you are on the back foot and playing catch up in comparison to other businesses. And that can be, you know, you want to catch up so that you make sure that you're seen in a great light by candidates who do value inclusive employers, and you do want to be seen by those candidates as an inclusive employer. I think that the impact of that, though, on the flip side, is that sometimes organisations then try and do too much with too little resource, or they try and strive to be perfect. And as I said, it's not about perfection, it's about progress.
Yeah, that's such a good point. And I suppose having a deadline, a fixed thing, implies that there's an end, and actually it's a continuous activity. I think the line which you use that I'll certainly be stealing and using as my own is it's not about perfection, it's about progress. And I'll use that in meetings totally earnestly as if I've just invented it.
Oh, I can't wait to hear you speaking about that, Roger.
Talent borrows and genius steals.
It's quite common, actually. Roger does take a few lines from many podcast guests and use them as his own. And I'll
do you know what? I love that.
Think, I've heard that before.
Yeah, it's great though, because I'm sitting here laughing at that, but the whole kind of strapline of doing a few things and doing them really well, I also stole from a colleague of mine of when I worked in another business many years ago. And she used to say it all the time, and she was a really big believer of that. And I was like, actually, I really love that sort of motto, and I've taken that with me ever since. So you can have it. You're welcome to use it for sure.
I'll take that one, and Roger can take the other one. There we go.
Yeah.
You're clearly very passionate and very knowledgeable about this. And I just wanted to ask, what is it about your job you love so much?
Oh, that's a great question. I love so much about my job. And I think what I really love is that I get the opportunity to make really impactful change, even though might only be in one organisation that I'm working with. I know that it'll have impact in society as well. Everything that I do isn't just an insular piece of work within one organisation. Everything that I do has a lens on society as well. And as I said at the beginning, the reason that I kind of wanted to progress into this space was so that I could use my own lived experiences to make positive and impactful change. I remember years ago, and I've talked about this in previous sort of events that I've done, I was dismissed from a place of work because of a disability that I have. And I asked for flexibility in my job to accommodate my new sort of disability. It didn't happen at that point in my life. I only developed it when I was in my teenage years, but it progressively got worse at the time when I was working for this company. And if I'd have known what I knew now, I would have fought that tooth and nail. But at the time, I didn't know what I know now. But I guess that experience helped shape me and helped me think, actually, this isn't okay. And I don't want to see this happen again. And then it just kind of ignited something in me to say, actually, this is the career that I want to progress.
Yeah, that's a powerful story, and clearly strong motivation behind doing what it is that you do.
Yeah.
So one of the things that we like to do finally, as we come to the end of our time here, is ask people about their current reads or listens, and anything that they would recommend to other listeners. And it doesn't necessarily need to be related to diversity, equity and inclusion.
Yeah, that's great. I mean, currently, aside from I am always reading about things in my job, because I think, as I say, things constantly evolve. Aside from that, I am perhaps controversially reading The Spare Book by Prince Harry, which I am fully engrossed into. But I think I guess outside of that, I'm currently reading, well, I have 2 books on the go at the moment. One thing that you'll probably learn about me is that I have multiple things on the go at once. I have ADHD, so I struggle to concentrate on one thing solely for a long period of time, and I flip between. So I'm reading 2 books at the moment. The first one is Leading Global Diversity, Equity and Inclusion by Rohini Anand. So Rohini is somebody who I would recommend as kind of a great thought leader in diversity, equity and inclusion. And I've read this book probably around 3 times. And each time I make notes and I put sticky tabs everywhere. So if you looked at it, it would be a big mess to somebody else, but to me it makes perfect sense. I think that it's a great book for leaders who want to know more about diversity and inclusion and where to start. It's really practical as a tool, I would say. Aside from that, Invisible Women by Caroline Perez is a really great book. Again, this is another one that I've probably read about 3 or 4 times, and I would highly recommend it. It's very data driven, so it is very heavy, but it highlights so many barriers that women face within the world that's designed for men. And I think it just brings that to life a little bit more. I've definitely recommended that to a few of my friends, for sure.
A few of your male friends.
Yeah, my husband is currently reading it as well. So
Right, I've actually got it and read it, and I'm the same as you. I'm a massive fan of it. It's very, very enlightening and interesting.
It really is. Like, when I first read it the first time, I couldn't absorb what it was saying because it was so data heavy, and I'm not a data person. Like, maths is definitely not my strong point, and so I had to make loads of notes and write things down and sticky tabs and things like that. And then I've gone back to it and I've probably reread it 2 or 3 times now. But yeah, I mean, my husband read it and then he spotted things in there that I'd not seen. So I think I'm constantly learning by the knowledge that's inside that book, for sure.
Yeah, it's great. Well, thank you so much, Stacey. It's been really great speaking to you.
Oh, no, thank you ever so much for having me. It's a really great conversation. I know we could probably talk about this for hours, but thank you ever so much for having me. It's been a really great conversation.
Been fun. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. Thanks for listening. For more expert insights, check out our other bite-sized episodes, perfect for micro learners and those with a short attention span, just like me. And if you're interested in being a guest, reach out to us at leapcreate.co.uk. See you next time.